Welcome to the Emergency Response Insider, the podcast where we dive deep into the systems and strategies that keep us safe in times of crisis. I'm your host, Mark Anderson, and today we have a very special episode where we'll be discussing the Incident Command System, ICS, specifically the ICS 100 course, and how it applies not only in traditional emergency situations, but also in industrial settings. Joining me today are two seasoned professionals in emergency response. First, we have Sarah Collins, a certified emergency manager CEM with over a decade of experience in disaster management and response coordination. Welcome, Sarah.
Thanks, Mark. I'm happy to be here.
Alongside Sarah, we have John Matthews, an industrial safety expert and emergency response coordinator for one of the largest chemical plants in the country. John, it's great to have you with us.
Excited to be here, Mark. Thanks for having me.
All right, let's get right into it. Sarah, can you kick us off with a quick overview of what the ICS 100 course is and why it's so important for emergency response?
Absolutely, Mark. The ICS 100 course is essentially an introduction to the Incident Command System. It's designed for anyone who may be involved in emergency response, from first responders to support personnel. The course provides a basic understanding of how the ICS structure works, the key roles within the system, and the common terminology used during an incident. The ICS itself is a standardized approach to the command, control, and coordination of emergency response operations. It's flexible and scalable, meaning it can be used for both small, localized incidents like a car accident or large-scale disasters like hurricanes or wildfires.
That's great, Sarah. Now, John, in your experience working in industrial emergency response, how does ICS 100 apply to your day-to-day operations?
That's a great question, Mark. In industrial settings, like chemical plants or refineries, the potential for an incident is always there, whether it's a hazardous materials spill, a fire, or even a system failure. ICS 100 is critical because it teaches us to organize and communicate effectively during those incidents. For example, we use the same ICS structure in our emergency action plans. If there's an incident, everyone knows their role. We have an incident commander, just like in the public sector, and we follow the same 5 major functions: command, operations, planning, logistics, and finance administration. This ensures that even in high-stress situations, there's a clear chain of command and everyone knows what they need to do.
That's a great segue, John. Sarah, can you break down those 5 major functions in ICS and how they work during an emergency?
Of course. The 5 major functions in ICS are foundational to the system. Let's break them down. Command. This is where the incident commander, IC, comes in. The IC sets the overall objectives and priorities for the incident. They're responsible for the entire operation until they delegate authority to others. Operations. This section is responsible for tactical operations. In industrial settings, this is where you'd see people actively working to stop a fire, contain a chemical spill, or perform rescues. It's the boots-on-the-ground part of the response. Planning. The planning section collects and evaluates information. They're in charge of creating the Incident Action Plan, IAP, which lays out the objectives and strategies for each operational period. In an industrial emergency, this might involve looking at safety data sheets, SDS, to understand chemical hazards or planning evacuation routes. Logistics. These folks provide all the resources and support for the incident. Need more respirators? Logistics handles that. Need a backup generator? Logistics gets it there. In industrial incidents, this is especially important because specialized equipment is often required. Finance administration. This section deals with costs, procurement, and timekeeping. In the public sector, they handle things like overtime pay for first responders. In an industrial setting, they might be keeping track of equipment costs, contractor fees, or insurance claims.
And John, how does understanding these roles help in an industrial environment, say, during a chemical spill?
It's essential, Mark. In a chemical spill, for example, we activate our ICS structure immediately. The incident commander will take charge and set the objectives, typically things like containment, evacuation, and ensuring the safety of personnel. The operations section will focus on stopping the spill and preventing it from spreading, while logistics makes sure the right protective gear, like hazmat suits or decontamination showers, is available. Planning will be looking at the weather conditions, possible wind direction, and how it could affect surrounding areas. Also prepare an incident action plan for the next operational period. Finance administration will already be tracking costs for cleanup and notifying insurers. Having this structure in place, which ICS 100 introduces, allows us to respond quickly and efficiently without confusion.
That's fascinating. ICS also emphasizes something called span of control. Sarah, can you explain that concept and why it's important, especially in large incidents?
Sure. Span of control refers to the number of individuals or resources that one supervisor can manage effectively. The general rule in ICS is that one person should oversee no more than 5 direct reports. In a large industrial emergency where there may be multiple teams responding, firefighters, hazmat teams, equipment operators, it's crucial to maintain that ratio. If the span of control becomes too wide, it leads to confusion, miscommunication, and can slow down the entire response effort.
Now, let's talk quickly about the Incident Action Plan, IAP. John, how do you implement IAPs in industrial environments?
In an industrial setting, the IAP is our roadmap for handling the incident. It outlines our objectives, the resources we need, and the strategies we'll use to stabilize the situation. During drills and actual incidents, the plan ensures that everyone is on the same page. For example, during a fire drill in our chemical plant, our IAP specifies evacuation routes, the role of fire brigades, and the communication plan for updating staff and nearby responders. It's detailed and ensures that we're not just reacting to the emergency, but responding in a coordinated and strategic way.
It sounds like ICS 100 is really the foundation for everything. Sarah, for someone just starting out or entering the industrial response field, why should they prioritize completing ICS 100?
ICS 100 is the building block. It introduces you to the structure and roles that are essential in any incident. Whether you're a first responder or someone working in an industrial facility, understanding ICS means you can integrate seamlessly into any emergency response operation. It's the foundation for more advanced courses like ICS 200, 300, and beyond. In fact, most companies require ICS 100 before you can participate in their emergency drills or take on any response role.
This has been an incredibly informative discussion. Sarah, John, thank you both so much for your insights into ICS 100 and how it applies not only in traditional emergency settings, but also in industrial environments.
It was a pleasure, Mark.
Thanks for having us.
For those of you listening or watching, if you're involved in emergency response or work in an industrial setting, I highly recommend taking the ICS 100 course. It's a great first step toward ensuring you're prepared when an incident occurs. That's all for today's episode of the Emergency Response Insider. Stay safe, and we'll catch you next time.